Good day, dear students. How are you? I hope that you were able to view every learning session that I have recorded and uploaded in our FB group, and I have already made YouTube channel for the purpose of easier uploading of learning sessions. Okay, so kindly watch a video entitled "Are You Living an Insta Life?" It depicts the social media versus reality. So let's proceed to our lesson 9, the digital self. After our recorded learning session, you should be able to discuss digital self, explain digital technologies, and of course, you'll be able to relate yourself on the use of different social media. So your activity 19 should be done in your workbook. It is entitled My Digital Self and decipher its relevance on our lesson. So let's proceed. It says here, the amount of time these adolescents spend online can have both positive and negative outcomes. I believe that you all have contentions regarding this premise, okay? But remember that it is you who should be controlling the technology like the social media. It is not the social media that should control you. Remember what Pia Wurtzbach said, that think before you click, okay? What statistics says? Philippines is the fastest growing market of smartphones in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN, based on the report of a market research company, International Data Corporation. Why? One of the causes is that we really want not to be socially distant from our families, from our relatives, and from the significant persons that we have. Okay, even if we are physically distant, we just want to be connected with them. And of course, smartphones are one of the media for us to get closer, okay, to those significant others that we have. Okay, another is that a report indicated that about 3.5 million smartphones were shipped to the country during first quarter of 2016. 2016 pa yan, malamang tumaas na ngayon. Currently, about 30% of Filipinos are smartphones user, band that is projected to increase in the next year. In times of pandemic like this, where online learning and everything became often through online, okay, the demand for the use of smartphones, cell phones, laptops, printers increased, okay. The supplies were also quite in an average level, okay. They are ample. So ang pandemic ay isang advantage para sa digital world na umarangkada at para sa mga information and communication technology na mag-innovate. Okay, so ayan, ang pandemic ay nagbibigay din ng advantage for them to have work. Okay, that's the positive side of it, especially in the digital world. Okay, let's proceed to the concept of digital literacy. It is defined as those capabilities possessed by individuals who are living, learning, and working in a digital society. Okay, the ICT, BSIT graduates are, of course, competent and they have the digital literacy. And of course, in the curriculum of DepEd and CHED, they are integrating this so that the graduates would be globally competitive through digital literacy, of course, as a consideration. Let us proceed to self and other in cyberspace. So this is one of the concepts under cyberspace, the online disinhibition. This pertains to the lack of restraint one feels when communication online in comparison to communicating in person. This could have both positive and negative effects. Okay, the lack of restraint that we feel when communicating online. Na yes, we are very courageous when we are online, but then when it comes to personal communication, the face-to-face interaction, we are very shy. Okay, so the opposite, of course, depicts the online disinhibition that we have. And what positive or advantage could it have? Of course, it will develop first our verbal or written capability because there's no personal interaction, but then we often write, so nahuhone iyon. But one of the negative effects is that our capability in personal interaction diminishes, okay, and we wear masks because we could post lots of faces, lots of masks, lots of pretensions when we are in the digital world compared to the personal and actual interaction that we could have to other people. Okay, so that's one of the negative effects. I know that you have examples as well. You may comment on our comment section when I post this in our FB group. So here are the two categories of online disinhibition. First is the benign disinhibition. This indicates an attempt to understand and explore oneself, to work through problems and find new way of being. Okay, so we have here, we could find support system or cohorts through the digital world. Okay, so we could say that the restraint that we have in a personal interaction is already overcome. Okay, so we meet people who are experiencing our situation or a situation that we have. Okay, so cohort kasi ang tawag natin kung ang isang tao ay ang grupo ng tao ay nakakaranas ng similar na situation gaya ng sa atin. For example, that you cannot open to your parents and you can open to those who listen in the online world. So that's benign disinhibition. We also have toxic disinhibition. This can be ugly, it says here, because people have witnessed rude language, harsh criticism, anger, hatred, even threats online. One of which is an example of which is in the social business, wherein when one celebrity posts something about himself or herself, then there are lots of bashers who would say harsh criticism, which could degrade and not boost the self-esteem of those celebrities or persons concerned. Ayan, so that's an example of toxic disinhibition. But in the actual life, in a personal interaction, they could not do it. They are just courageous because they are, of course, in front of the computer or a cell phone. In toxic disinhibition, others may even go to the dark side of internet where they can access pornography, crimes, and other forms of violence. Okay, as I told you a while ago that there could be many masks worn by a person when they are inside the internet, of course, or the cyberspace. In a personal and actual interaction, a family would know that this is a very good child, tahimik lang siya, meron lang siya sa kanyang kwarto, gumagawa ng kanyang mga aralin or assignments. But then in toxic disinhibition, it says that they could access sites which are unhealthy and are not recommended for children. Okay? So, pwede kasi maging secret ito. In our smartphones, parents could monitor the activities of their children depending on the applications that they could install there. And before they would give that cellphone ay meron na silang alam na application at hindi nila ipapahintulot na dapat meron siyang passcode or password na hindi nila alam para ma-monitor pa rin nila. Especially if the child is a minor. In toxic disinhibition, people tend to go to virtual spaces which they are not supposed to explore, wherein they could be exposed to cyberbullying, cyber harassment. Remember, cyberbullying and cyber harassment has a corresponding punishment in our law right now here in the Philippines. So let's proceed to managing online disinhibition. How will we address those that we mentioned? Of course, don't post or send anything you would be embarrassed for certain others to see, because the Facebook, the social networking sites reach vast space, okay, in the cyber world. And of course, do be careful about oversharing. If we have what we call psychological stripping, wherein we share lots of information about our personal life. Okay, so we do not want to be like that because we have what we call the four windows in our Johari window, isn't it? So be careful. You share what's proper, what could inspire others who could read it, but do not share those personal things that you already have, which should be revolving around your family or in yourself na lang. Don't hang out with the wrong crowd online or offline. Yes, there are lots of group chats and FB groups, but try to decipher what to join at, okay, where to join at, because remember, okay, the same feather flock together. Birds of the same feather flock together, ika nga sa social psychology. So you could be identified because of the extension of yourself through the cohorts or through the crowd that you are selecting to be joining at online. And of course, the fourth, do consider your emotional state before virtually posting or responding to anything. Remember, do not post if you are in the height of your emotion, because you may bash someone or you may open up something personal about you. And do consider the reaction individuals are expecting from toxic disinhibition. You might be bashed, but you do not want to be experiencing that one. So be selective and be careful on what to post online. And of course, do search for yourself online. Let's proceed to the I, me, myself, and my user identity online. What is digital identity? It refers to anything that describes a persona an individual presents across all the digital spaces that he or she is represented in. Okay. If you reflect and decipher what digital identity have you post online, okay, have you realized if it is towards the negative continuum or positive continuum? So it's for us to ponder on. Let's proceed to the symbolic markers. Express one's identity to others and help them make sense of it themselves. Okay, there are lots of opinions online which make sense of encouraging, inspiring, and blessing those readers. So they could imply lots that are very essential to our lives, so they could be appreciated. Okay, but let us also try to post the explicit things, okay? Yung walang double meaning, mag-post po tayo ng clear and direct ang sinasabi para kumbaga walang mag-iisip na ganito kaya yung meaning na sinabi niya, ako kaya yung sinasabi niya, like that, okay? So express one's identity to others and help them make sense of it themselves, and do not do the otherwise. First concept about that is the disembodiment. Refers to the identity, soul, and spirit separate from physical body. Okay. So we said that soul, body, mind, and spirit are one, and it is of course contributing to your self-identity. So if one part of this separates, okay, specifically on how we present ourselves online, then what could it be? Are you towards holistic growth, development through the digital world, or where are you leaning at? Second is the dissociative imagination. For them, identity online is just a game show. How people act in a fantasy game is not always how people act in the real world. That's why there are persons who fabricate their identity online. They do fake accounts, okay? And of course, they present fake selves. That's why when someone is courting you, especially for the ladies, and they are using the online world, do not believe instantly, okay? Search, research. And of course, it's much more appropriate if the courting happens personally, because you can ask directly, you can also observe what are the negative and positive traits of a person. Unlike in an online world wherein everything could be fruitful, everything could be juicy, the words could give you the moon and the sun, just like that. I know that you could understand what I am relaying to you. Third is the solipsistic introjection. It is a notion that is only in their heads or mind when people don't know what a virtual person looks or sounds like. People tend to assign traits to those individuals, which is an imaginary interaction with the introjected character. Okay? It says here, yeah, bro. Hey, Jake, you going to the game this weekend? Okay. So the digital world presents to us untrue identities, okay, and sometimes we could really lean towards fantasy or idealistic identities. That is what we call solipsistic introjection. Next is the dissociative anonymity. Also plays a role for online users. People don't have to own their behavior by acknowledging it within the full context of who they really are. That's why they could post anonymously, or they could do fake online accounts just to, of course, express their sympathies, express their ideas and their thoughts, but then that is not the real them. Okay, they just want it specifically as a new hobby. Okay, let's proceed to the self-presentation strategies and impression management. Self-presentation is a range of strategies that people adopt to shape what others think of them. Okay, ang mga tao, iniisip ako na instructor ako, therefore, ang ipipresent ko ay instructor talaga ako. So, that's the self-presentation. But do not limit your self-presentation in one role only. You could be genuine as you are. But remember, do not divulge everything in the social media. And we have that, what we call data privacy. Okay? Do not divulge any personal identity or personal identification information like your bank accounts, your cell phone numbers, and the like. Okay? Still remain private despite that you have your social media account. First, in self-presentation, we have self-promotion, trying to show that he or she is competent, effective, or a winner. Okay, I am great, go. Sometimes people would be inspired, be blessed, and be encouraged of what you are doing, but others would envy. Okay, so be careful about that. Second, ingratiation, okay, has the desire to be likable, they expect affection. Okay, kaya minsan yung mga iba na nagpo-post online, especially on the Facebook, they would post something at the beginning of the day, then at the end of the day, ilan kaya ang nag-like? Bakit kaya may angry? Bakit may... Okay, so kahit ano bang interaction or reaction, these are already significant for them because of this concept number 2 under self-presentation. Next is exemplification. This involves an intention to achieve worth from others. A person expects others to feel guilty by their actions. Okay, this is what I have cited a while ago, that someone would post, okay, and the readers would think, ako kaya yun, maraming nag-a-assume na sila kasi sometimes yung ini-explain or yung ini-example ng isang nagpo-post ay sakto sa kanila. Okay, sometimes the proper communication media should also be deciphered. Okay, realize na kung meron kang concern sa isang tao or issue sa isang tao, ay you have that what we call private message as a social media na yun yung gagamitin mo if it involves private concern. Okay, hindi mo siya sasabihin sa Facebook or sa Instagram kung saan maraming makaka-view at very public pa. Okay, so responsible use of the social media is still the bottom line in our presentation of ourselves in the digital world. Next, intimidation. We try to appear dangerous or ruthless, or one expects others to be afraid of them. This is cyberbullying. If in physical or actual or personal bullying, one appears very strong and he abuses his power to intimidate the bullied person, here in intimidation is part of cyberbullying because this is the digital form of bullying. Okay, so dangerous and ruthless. Okay, so it's a no-no. Next is supplication. Would like to appear helpless, handicapped, or unfortunate, he or she aims to achieve nurturance from the others. Okay, minsan kasi ginagamit natin yung social media to have, of course, the pity of the many, or almost often all our viewers, okay, that we feel handicapped and the likes. Syempre maraming maaawa and all would assume that this is the reality that you're experiencing. So tutulong talaga sila, but then let us again be responsible about how we present ourselves in the social media. Okay, let's proceed to self-enhancement after the self-presentation. So, SE refers to the tendency to think oneself in favorable light. Okay, if I am better in the actual, I would want to be the best in the digital world. I would present myself in the best manner that I want. Okay, that's self-enhancement. Even if in the real, personal, and actual world, you are not like that. Okay, it somehow has a disadvantage, but it also has an advantage for the self-esteem of a person. Next is impression management, or what we call IM. In psychological testing, we have this concept. How about in the digital world? It refers to a deliberate attempt to distort one's response in order to create a favorable impression with others. In psychological testing, if we are undergoing or answering a test, we could lean towards very positive impression or very negative impression depending on our mood. So that's a no-no, because in psychological tests, especially in those personality tests, we are encouraged to answer according to what is true to us, okay, at the moment. Next, impact of online interactions on the self. It says here that the development of a person's social aspects can be greatly influenced by technology due to an insufficient amount of real-life social encounters. Okay, this is very true. That's why we in the Department of Psychology are very concerned when it comes to the present mental health condition of our students taking BS Psychology, and of course the students who are under us, who are enrolled in other subjects. Ayan, that's why we encourage still that they should be interacting socially in their neighborhood, yung mga kasityo, yung sa family, na hindi lang sila magkukulong doon sa kwarto nila or the study area at ito lang, technology lang kanilang kaharap. Remember, a 30-minute or 1-hour dinner with our family members wherein we will be told about how the day has been, okay, that kumusta ka sa inyong online na pag-aaral at mag-open ka din sa kanila kung kumusta ka na nga, makakatulong iyon, okay, as a social encounter. Remember, honesty, openness, and trustworthiness is not just limited to those whom we tell that, okay, in our training participants, in our psychology students, but then it is also applicable to all. Okay, be hot inside our family, be hot around our significant others, be hot on our neighborhood now that we have this pandemic. Kasi hindi lahat maipupunta sa social media. Okay, we have to encounter socially and face-to-face those whom we love and share to them what we are undergoing right now. That's very important. And we would also know what is going on with them. Based on analysis of teenagers' online experience, showed that other on the internet constitute a distinctive looking glasses that produces a digital self that differs from the self formed online. While online, a person's status in the face-to-face world may not be known to others and may not have much of that impact. Okay, So let us just be congruent on what we present and on what and how we present ourselves digitally, and of course in the real world, the face-to-face one. And here are the boundaries of the self online. You should take note about this. Personal boundaries are the set of guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for people to behave towards them and how they respond in case someone breaks these rules or overstep the limits. Okay. Minsan, kailangan natin na maglagay ng gap. Okay. Pero pag ino-open na natin ang sarili natin sa social media, which reaches vast of the digital space and of course reaches crowd, hindi lang yung Philippines, we are of course creating an opportunity for those viewers to attack us personally. So let us be careful on what we post so that the personal boundary is still intact. Okay, we also have asynchronicity. It allows a person to think more carefully about what he or she would like to say before posting, which could help when someone has trouble with face-to-face interaction. When we say asynchronous kasi, hindi siya sa real time or actual time na nangyayari. Okay, dinedelay muna ng isang tao ang pagpo-post kahit merong nangyari sa kanya ngayong araw na to, hindi niya ipo-post agad-agad. Okay, dinedelay niya para mas makapag-isip siya kung ano bang caption or ano bang ipo-post niya or kung ipo-post ba nito or hindi. So that's asynchronicity. Okay, let's proceed to social identity online. What is social identity? It is usually based on group affiliation. Like on social media, many people identify themselves as member of a certain group so that it will be easy for them to communicate their concerns with others. Okay? One of my social identities at present is that I am a licensed financial advisor of Life. Okay, so gusto ko yun na i-promote kasi bago yun na experience para sa akin. So, it is one of the social identities that I have. And of course, one of which is isinali ko doon sa about me yung galing akong SLU. O gusto kong makilala na galing ako dyan sa paaralan na yan dahil napakahusay. Ganun. That I previously worked in an institution called DSWDO. So, gusto ko ding makilala socially through those. Okay? So, those are concrete examples. How about you? I know that you have your own examples. Try to think and see what you post online, especially the information about you. Further, in the modern era, now the 20th century, identity is described as fixed, stable, and unitary. In the postmodern period, now, identity is considered as fluid, multiple, and socially constructed. So, if then our identity should be fixed, firm, and crystallized, now it is fluid and socially constructed because we acknowledge the presence of social media and the presence of the other agents in our social world. Okay? Next are the digital technologies. Okay, it says there, drink some water before we proceed. Okay, digital technologies lead to change consumer behavior. Possessions are taken as part of the selves knowingly, unknowingly, intentionally, or unintentionally. Okay, so this somehow depicts that there are changes towards better or worse, okay, that is brought by digital technology. First concept about this is the dematerialization. Technologies make it easier to keep our possessions like information, music, photographs, videos, communication, etc. convenient and faster, termed as digital artifacts. I remember one of my previous co-workers say that I am always posting our activities because I want it to be remembered easily or to be retrieved easily. I post our pictures there because I want to retrieve it, whether the soft copies of my pictures are in my laptop but I do not have my laptop. If I post it online through Facebook, I can easily retrieve it. So, yan po. Next is re-embodiment. Digital devices and applications help us make our own avatar, own character, partly us, partly a separate entity. Okay, this is very common nowadays. We have our own avatar. I myself have tried this, and of course, sabi ko, wala naman yung avatar na talagang nag-appear na ako. So, ito na lang kasi nearly me, partly me. Okay, have you tried this? Have you experienced this? Okay, so next is sharing. Digital devices help us to share more. This wealth of goodies is there because others have shared. Okay, sometimes we tag persons when it comes to communal pictures that we have captured. We tag people who have the same thoughts as what we have posted online. So that's the essence of sharing. Next is co-construction of self. Digital world helps us construct our extended self. Social networking sites are seen as important sites of psychological development between adolescence and adulthood. Okay? These are very important. Sabi ko nga, if they are used responsibly. Next is the distributed memory. Digital devices used to record and archive document our memories allow access to an expanded archive of individual and collective autobiographical memory cues. Okay? Who among you do not anymore print their pictures and make albums, physical albums? Okay? I myself have not been printing pictures because I believe that Facebook will store it. But sometimes let us think practically and just, of course, print one picture per occasion and then have a caption on that and make an album, and that hobby would be considered as a stress reliever. Okay, so yes, we have our albums in the Facebook, but of course it is also good to have a hard copy so that it would be readily available, especially for the old ones who cannot anymore read our social media posts. Do not forget that this is the big word. This is the nugget of wisdom for the digital presentation of ourselves. If you are on social media and you are not learning, not laughing, not being inspired, or not networking, then you are using it wrong. Sayang yung load, sayang yung data. Okay, so let's click responsibly. Okay, think before we click, and of course, let's use the social media responsibly as an extension of our self-identity. Do not psychologically strip. Do not open up everything. You should have your hidden area, and of course, post those who are leaning towards positivity, reality, and of course, that would inspire the readers. Thank you so much, and God bless us always.